Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Nightfall Terrors. I know many of you enjoy using these videos to help you fall asleep, so before you start to drift off, it would be great if you could leave a comment sharing where you're listening from around the world. If you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Now, let's get cozy, settle in, and begin. My neighbor's apartment had been sealed off for more than 20 years. Last Friday, they finally opened it. Honestly, I wish they hadn't. I'll withhold my name and the city. Let's just say it's an older working-class neighborhood in a city that's past its prime. The kind of place with aging brick buildings packed tightly together, and streets so narrow that only one car can fit through at a time. I'd lived in this particular building for almost my entire life, at least as far back as I can recall. It was an old walk-up, older than me, older than my father. Cracked plaster walls, uneven worn stairs, flickering lights on a random schedule, and water pressure that was more suggestion than certainty, typical for the area. The building had its peculiarities, which we all grew accustomed to. Strange thuds late at night, the hallway light on our floor sometimes flaring brightly, then dimming without cause, and the second-floor neighbor's cat occasionally hissing at one specific spot on the third-floor landing and refusing to pass. You know, the sort of oddities people dismiss as the house settling or faulty wiring, explanations that help you sleep at night. Life has enough real worries already, but those small oddities were one thing. Apartment 4B, directly across the narrow hallway from ours, was something else entirely. That unit had been sealed shut, locked with a heavy rusted padlock over a thick metal hasp, bolted firmly to the door and frame. It had been that way for over 2 decades, well before my family moved in. The wooden door was worn, paint peeling, bearing the marks of age and moisture, yet firmly closed, and no one ever dared approach it. When we first moved in, my late father asked the elderly landlord at the time about 4B. Why was it locked and not rented like the others? The landlord, already quite old then, but still sharp, darkened and spoke firmly. That apartment is my business, son. I don't keep it locked to rent it out. Mind your own. That was enough to stop anyone in the building from pressing the issue. The landlord was a recluse, living on the ground floor, rarely seen or spoken to. When he became too frail, his son took over managing the building. But even he shut down any questions about 4B. That apartment cast a quiet but persistent unease over all of us on the 4th floor, especially those across from it. Why? Because of the sounds, not loud or startling noises. These were subtle, faint, but deeply disturbing. Sometimes a soft scratching, like an animal trapped behind the door. Other times, a low, broken whisper, almost unintelligible. And most unsettling of all, a faint, electrical hum or deep, steady thrumming, like a distant, massive engine. An impossible noise for a sealed apartment, likely disconnected from utilities decades ago. These sounds were not constant. They followed an eerie rhythm, usually late at night or in the quiet hours before dawn, when the city seemed to hold its breath. At first, we assumed the sounds were echoes from neighboring apartments through old walls, but over time, we became certain 4B was the source. Other strange phenomena surrounded the apartment. The hallway floor directly in front of its door was always colder than the rest of the landing. Even in the hottest summer heat, standing there meant feeling an unnerving chill, like a pocket of stray cats that occasionally wandered inside to rest on the stairs avoided that spot entirely, arching their backs and quickly moving away as if frightened. My mother would quietly pray and sprinkle salt by our door, sometimes reciting scripture more loudly when the sounds from 4B were stronger. My father tried to comfort us, saying, "It's just your imagination," or probably rats or old pipes, though we all knew that was unlikely. Rats couldn't produce those specific noises, and a locked, sealed apartment wouldn't have active plumbing. As I grew into my teens and 20s, 4B became an obsession. What was inside? Why were the landlord and his son so determined to keep it closed? What was behind those sounds? I began paying close attention, trying to decode the whispers, the scratching, the hum. Did the whispering form words? Was the scratching the pattern? Did the hum change? Late at night, after my parents were asleep, I'd crack open our door and listen in the dark hallway. Once, I pressed my ear to 4B's cold, aged door. The chill seeped through my clothes, and I heard something like a slow, irregular ticking. Tick. Then a long pause. 2 quick ticks. An even longer silence, followed by a deep, shuddering breath. Then the ticking started again. My heart raced, and I hurried back inside, slamming our door shut, convinced I'd been watched through an unseen crack. I asked older tenants who'd lived there longer, one elderly woman on the second floor, who had lived in the building all her life, whispered cautiously, "That apartment was closed before the old man bought this place. They say people lived there and just vanished. And, God forgive me, they say it's touched by something not good. When he bought it, he left it sealed, said no one should open it, so the badness inside doesn't spread." Her words chilled me more than any draft. How old was that story? And what did she mean by badness that spreads? Our neighbor on the same floor shared that sometimes a strange odor seeped from under 4B's door. Not just dampness or mildew, but a scent like ancient dust mixed with burnt wood or cloying incense. It made her feel ill. Her young son once froze by the door, staring fixedly. When asked what he saw, he said a faint light glowed beneath the door. She immediately pulled him away and forbade him from going near 4B again. All this deepened my morbid fascination and dread. I waited for the sounds, hoping to understand them, watching the door as if it might reveal its secrets. I dreamed about it, oppressive dreams where 4B's door creaked open by itself, revealing pitch darkness and something vast and formless emerging. I'd wake drenched in sweat. Eventually, the old landlord passed away, and his son inherited the building. He was more approachable than his father. One day, with 2 others from the building who shared my unease, I gathered courage to ask about 4B. We visited his father's former apartment, now his office, a small, cluttered space smelling faintly of old books and pipe tobacco. We brought up 4B, the sounds, our concerns. At first he dismissed it, old building, overactive imaginations. But when we pressed with details, his expression changed. Unease was clear. He lowered his voice and glanced nervously around. "Look, guys, my father made me swear never to talk about 4B, never to go near it. He inherited it sealed. The previous owner warned him never to open it, never to rent it, said it wasn't like other apartments, that it was connected to something else, something very old and very wrong. He was terrified. said keeping it locked was what protected us all. I leaned in. Connected to what? What do you mean, something else? He shook his head. I don't know details. All I know is he feared it deeply. Said the sounds came from things not of this world. And on certain nights of the year, the sounds worsen. The chill grows biting. And on those nights, no one should come near. His words ignited my curiosity, but also sparked a deeper, more unsettling fear. What exactly was this something else? And what happened on those certain nights? Months went by, with nothing changing. The faint noises continued, the cold spot remained, and an uneasy tension hung over the tenants. Then came the event that altered everything. The landlord's son, despite his father's warnings, was under pressure. The building was aging, repairs were costly, and his finances were tight. He began considering opening apartment 4B, cleaning it out and renting it. The potential income was tempting. We heard about this and grew genuinely concerned. We reminded him of the warnings, urging caution, but desperation, or the hope of profit, seemed to outweigh reason. He promised to have someone inspect it properly, maybe even get a priest to bless it before taking any action. He needed to resolve the issue of the unused space. A few days later, he brought a handyman, a large man equipped with a crowbar and power drill. It was Friday afternoon. Most residents were home or out. I watched nervously from my window, peeking through the curtains. The handyman appeared indifferent, likely assuming it was just a stuck old door. The landlord looked uneasy. They began drilling into the rusty padlock. The harsh sound echoed sharply through the stairwell. After several minutes and a loud crack, the padlock broke and fell to the floor. The door was now only secured by internal locks or old hinges. The landlord exchanged a tense glance with the handyman, then took a deep breath and pushed the door. It opened slowly, a creak of aging wood, only a small gap, about 6 inches. At first, nothing but darkness. Then, suddenly, every sound around us stopped. The distant city noise, traffic, children playing, even my refrigerator's hum, all vanished. A heavy, unnatural silence filled the space, as if the world itself had paused. The air changed too. A biting, unnatural cold poured out from the opening. Not the usual chill, but one that seemed to drain the warmth from your bones. The hallway light dimmed as if an unseen cloud had blocked the sun. All of this unfolded within seconds. The landlord and handyman froze, staring at the small gap. I stood behind my curtains, paralyzed by the silence, the cold, and the fading light. From the gap emerged something, neither smoke nor fog. It was fine, black ash, impossibly soft, drifting slowly like it floated in still air. Matte black, without any shine, it began to cover the floor near 4B. Then came a sound, the only noise to break the oppressive silence. It was deep, sorrowful, a long, drawn-out, cosmic sigh, like the last breath of a dying universe, filled with despair and finality. It felt as if it was pulling the very soul from my body. The handyman screamed, dropped his crowbar loudly, and fled, his footsteps echoing through the stairwell. The landlord stood, motionless, face pale, eyes wide, staring into the opening as the black ash settled on his clothes and hair. I couldn't watch any longer. I slammed and locked my door, retreating to the farthest corner of my room, covering my ears, trying to block out that soul-crushing sound and the image of the encroaching darkness. Yet the oppressive silence remained, pressing against my ears. The cold seeped beneath my door. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Minutes, maybe an hour. Slowly, the weight lifted. The usual sounds of the building and city returned, first faintly, then to normal. The terrible sigh was gone. Summoning my courage, I left my room and looked through the peephole. The landlord was still there, alone, leaning against the opposite wall, his face ashen. He stared at the door of 4B, still open 6 inches, the black ash thick on the floor. I unlocked my door and stepped out. He trembled. What was that? What's in there? I whispered. He met my gaze with vacant eyes and spoke in a hoarse whisper. Not an apartment. It's nothing. Just void, cold, and the end. Everything ends. There. He said no more. I helped him back to his apartment downstairs and sat him down. But I felt drawn back upstairs by the same dreadful curiosity. The gap remained open. The cold was intense, and as I approached, the hallway sounds seemed to fade again, as if being absorbed. I stood before the opening and looked inside. Initially, only darkness, a blackness deeper than any night I had ever seen. Then I realized it wasn't just darkness, but emptiness, an infinite void. No walls, ceiling, or floor, just endless cold blackness. Within that void were distant, faint pinpricks of light, like stars. But these stars were dying. I watched, horrified, as one by one they faded, like candles being snuffed out. I witnessed the heat death of a universe, the final extinction of all light and energy. I saw the very last spark disappear, and then nothing. Absolute blackness, cold, silence, the end of all existence, oblivion. That silent, static view was more terrifying than any monster or tangible threat. This was not a fear of attack, but of ultimate annihilation, eternal, empty, cold nothingness, a cosmic futility so profound it threatened to break my mind. Everything, my life, humanity, earth, stars, just a brief flicker destined to end in this void. I don't know how long I stared, seconds maybe, but it felt like an eternity of despair. Then I recoiled, stumbling back, hitting the wall, feeling my soul being drained. I looked again at that narrow opening, like the mouth of a cosmic beast, waiting to swallow the last light and life. At that moment, I understood 4B wasn't just haunted or evil. It was a window, a portal to the end of all things. Whether time flowed differently there or it was a fixed point, I couldn't say, and I didn't want to know. All I knew was I had to leave. I rushed back to my apartment, grabbed a bag, packed essentials, and fled. Out of the building, out of the neighborhood. Without looking back, I walked until I collapsed, then caught any buzz going anywhere but there. Now I'm in a motel room, somewhere unknown, hands shaking as I type this. That vision is etched in my mind. The blackness, the cold, the dying stars, the finality. Fear, the dark, and silence. Closing my eyes only brings it back. I don't know what happened to the landlord. Did he close the door? Sell the building? Is he still there? I don't want to find out. The handyman who fled. The other tenants. I can't think about them. What matters is how I live after seeing that. How can I return to normal, knowing what the end truly looks like? That a worn wooden door in a crumbling building leads to absolute oblivion. I write this as a warning, or maybe just to share, to feel less alone, less insane. If you live somewhere old with a locked room no one talks about, if you hear strange noises or feel unexplained cold, please leave it alone. Walk away. Curiosity won't just harm you. It can destroy your soul by revealing the bleak, cold, silent truth waiting for all of us. God help us. I truly don't know what else to say. Whatever was outside my window wasn't human, and it followed my friend home. We were about 17, experimenting with things we probably shouldn't have been. It began simply, lighting candles with the sigils, keeping dream journals and reading about astral projection online. Jess and I would stay up all night, researching spirit boards and protection spells, treating it like a game. My mom strongly disapproved. She was furious when she discovered the small altar we had set up in the basement. She said we were inviting darkness into the house. At the time, we dismissed her concerns as a typical adult exaggeration, another person who didn't understand. But then, strange things started to happen. At first, they were minor. Footsteps upstairs when the house was empty, whispering through the walls, unintelligible but persistent. Even my mom heard it once, though she said nothing, just looked at me as if she already knew I was involved. I began sleeping with the lights on. Jess thought it was exciting. "It's just energy," she said. "We're probably getting closer." One night, Jess stayed over. She was passed out on the floor in her sleeping bag, phone still in hand. I couldn't sleep. The atmosphere felt off, like the air pressure had shifted. Then I heard it, a soft rattling at the window. I assumed it was the wind or a branch brushing against the glass. But when I glanced over, I saw something. A shape, a face, pressed against the glass. It was a horned, goat-like figure. Its horns curled back like a ram's, and its pale, stretched face was unlike anything human. It was tall and hunched, with hooves, not hands, braced against the pane. It didn't move or blink. It just stared. Something deep inside me warned, "Don't look." That's the rule. If you don't look, you're safe. So I turned away, shut my eyes tightly, and forced myself to sleep. I didn't tell Jess. The next morning, the window was fogged from the cold, but there were 2 dark smudges on the outside. Not handprints, hoof prints. I finally told Jess over lunch. She didn't laugh or doubt me. She leaned in and said, "Like a goat man." "Yeah," I said, "exactly." Jess was fascinated by cryptids. Bigfoot, Mothman, you name it. Her MySpace was a shrine to the strangest corners of the internet. Naturally, she believed me and wanted to see it for herself. "I'm staying up tonight," she said. "I want to see it with my own eyes." "No," I warned. "I think it wants us to look. That's how it starts." She smiled. "Then I'll test it. If I die, you can say I told you so." That night, I prepared like it was a battle. Earplugs, sleep mask, hood up, facing away from the window. Jess had her thermos and phone ready for ghost hunting. But I woke up. The earplugs hurt. I pulled them out, took off my mask to get some water, and glanced at the window. The curtain was mostly closed, but a small gap revealed the movement behind it. I put the mask back on and told myself I imagined it. Minutes passed, maybe 5, maybe 10. Then I woke again. No sound, no motion, just a heavy wrongness. I sat up and removed the mask. The curtain was fully open, and it was there. The goatman pressed its face to the glass, like a starving creature trying to enter. Its mouth was wide open in a silent scream, jaw unnaturally long, throat black and endless. The horns scraped the frame. It was staring directly at me. I couldn't move or breathe. I reached out and nudged Jess. She sat up slowly, still groggy. Then she saw it. Her breath caught, but she didn't scream. She just froze, eyes locked on it, like mine. I whispered, "Close the curtain, now." She didn't move. "Jess, please, don't look. Just close it." Slowly, her hand pulled the curtain shut. The window disappeared behind the fabric, but we could still feel it. Tap. One soft knock. It was still there, waiting. Jess left the next morning without much explanation. Just packed and went. A week later, she called me in a whisper, as if hiding. "It's not the goatman anymore," she said. "It followed me home, but it changed." She described voices and shadows moving through her hallway when she wasn't looking, and the attic, her attic door, a drop-down wooden ladder started opening on its own, always at 3 a.m. Sometimes she'd find the ladder extended, reaching into the dark hallway. When she climbed up to check, there was nothing, just cold air and something waiting. She saw a shape once, tall, thin, like a figure burned into the dark. "I don't want to see anything else," she said. Ever again. She moved to another city that summer. She deleted all her old ghost blogs, threw out crystals and spirit boards, and stopped astral projecting. She told me she became a born-again Christian. "I just want peace," she said. "And now, I finally have it." As for me, I never saw the goatman again, but I experienced other things. Cold air in my room when it was warm outside, flickers of something in the mirror's edge, whispers beneath the floorboards and in the corners. After I moved out and completely stopped practicing the occult, it all stopped, just ended. Sometimes I wonder if we summoned it, or if it was just waiting for someone, anyone, to look. I don't dabble anymore. No spells, no rituals, no sigils in notebooks. Some things aren't meant to be explored. Some things are hungry. And some things just want you to look. I work night security at a remote forest observatory. Last night, the trees began screaming. Let me start by saying, I understand how this sounds. You're probably picturing someone delusional, sleep-deprived, maybe suffering from cabin fever. But please, if you read only one thing today, make it this. Consider me a warning. Because these trees, they aren't just alive. They're something far worse. At first, the job seemed like a dream. A remote outpost deep in the forest, simple pay, just monitoring old equipment and ensuring no one trespassed on government land after dark. Nothing ever happens, the previous guard told me. handing me a rusty walkie-talkie with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just you, the stars, and silence. I lasted 4 nights before the tree screamed. The observatory sits camouflaged about 30 miles into the Cascades, surrounded by pine, fog, and the pounding of your own heartbeat in your ears. No cell service, no Wi-Fi. One access road that closes behind you. They don't want anyone wandering in by accident or leaving without permission. There's a central dome for the servers and telescope, and then my tiny shack about 100 yards away. It barely fits a cot and a desk, but I was fine with that. I wanted solitude. I wanted to get away. I just didn't realize what I was getting away to. The first few nights were eerily still. No coyote howls, no rustling wind. Even the trees stood motionless, as if they were not meant to be noticed. Then, the 4th night, 4:46 a.m. I remember it clearly, because all the clocks in the shack stopped at that exact time. No warning. I was listening to a podcast on an old iPod when the audio warped into static, a voice trying to scream through water. Then, silence. That's when I heard it. The tree line groaned, not the wind, not animals. It was a deep, vibrational sound. The forest sounded like it was in pain. Then, it began screaming, not all at once, one by one, slow and low, like being gutted slowly. Then more joined in, dozens, hundreds. A chorus of torment echoed from the trees, crawling through the radio, the walls, and even my teeth. I ran to the window. My flashlight lit up the tree line, and I saw the movement. The trees weren't swaying. They were trembling, as if something inside was trying to escape. Their bark stretched tight, like skin. Branches cracked and bent oddly, like ribs. Then the eyes, small moist dots opening on the trunks like pores. 1 tree, then 2. Soon the whole forest was watching me. I stepped back, telling myself it was a dream, a hallucination. But as I reached the door, the screaming stopped suddenly, cut off like someone hit mute. Then a whisper, right behind me, in a voice not human. "Where do you think you're going, little bones?" I spun around. Nothing. Just my flickering flashlight on the ground. I didn't sleep. I hid under the desk all night, gripping the old revolver from the emergency locker. At dawn, I tried calling Central. Only static. The sat phone in the dome, destroyed. The GPS, it showed I was over the Pacific Ocean. I tried to leave. I swear I did. But when I reached the gate, the access road was gone. The gravel path ended, swallowed by thick new trees where none should be. And now, they're closer. The forest is closing in. I have no idea what the observatory was tracking before it went dark. I don't know if it saw something, or if something saw it. All I know is I'm no longer alone. And the trees, they don't like being watched. During the day, they're quiet. But at night, God help me, they sing. And I think they're learning to speak. If you read this and know someone working government surveillance in the Cascades, get them out. If you've ever hiked there and spotted a tree with a scar shaped like a mouth, run. And if you ever hear the forest whisper your name, do not answer. I used to make videos debunking legends. I don't anymore. There's an old castle hidden deep in a dark forest, unlike any other. No kings or queens lived there. No armies ever fought over it, and no nearby villages sought refuge beneath its walls. This castle wasn't built to protect or defend. It was designed as a cage, a locked prison. At its center lies a chapel enclosed by stone and silence, not built for worship, but to contain. Beneath its altar is Hauska's only prisoner. The chapel, dedicated to Archangel Michael, wasn't meant to bless. It was meant to hold something in. Underneath is said to be a pit without bottom or light, a gateway, supposedly, between earth and hell, or so the legend goes, if you believe in such things. I didn't. In fact, I made a career out of doubting the supernatural. I'm an independent filmmaker with a passion for horror. It began as a love for ghost stories from my grandfather and grew into a search for proof, any sign that there might be more to this world than meets the eye. But after one failed investigation, after another, I grew disillusioned. Eventually, I lost both belief and hope. My films shifted from curiosity to critique. For years, I debunked myths with a growing bitterness. It was with this same skepticism that I approached Hauska Castle, a supposed gateway to hell, or just a hole in the ground. As usual, I contacted the museum staff, introduced myself, and got the permission to film for one night. They told me the castle closes at sundown, and I could film once the last visitors left. They ended the call with this: the chapel door must remain shut at all times. A nice touch, I thought. Almost charming. Just keeping up the spooky castle act. I arrived that afternoon. The drive through the forest was grim. Narrow roads with trees leaning in too close. My GPS faltered, but that was normal so deep in the woods. Hauska was striking in its own way, like a dark painting perched on a cliff. Stone walls aged and stained, windows empty like eye sockets. It looked old, but with little history. No battle marks or signs of events. From the outside, it was a blank slate. I unloaded my gear as the sun set. The last tourists were long gone. The only person I met was the woman at the front desk. She handed me a visitor's badge and an old, heavy key tied with a ribbon. She didn't smile or ask questions. She simply reminded me what I already knew. The castle was mine to film, but the chapel had to stay locked. No exceptions. The key they gave me opened everything except that door. But I planned to change that. I was making a film about demons and ghosts. Did they really expect me to leave out the best part? I nodded politely as she spoke, and without a word, she left. I breathed deeply. It was the same feeling you get when your parents leave town and you have the house to yourself. Freedom to do anything. And this place had potential. The walls were rough gray stone, some blocks marked by lichen and water stains. The floor was uneven, patched with old wood and worn flagstone. Rusted iron sconces held thin electric lights that hummed faintly. No lavish tapestries or suits of armor like in movies. Hauska had no royal past, no grand halls. Its few decorations were unsettling rather than impressive. Some crooked paintings hung on the walls, figures faded and cracked with sunken eyes and twisted hands. One corridor had worn stone reliefs. Angels, I think. Faces worn smooth over time, wings sharp and jagged. Wooden statues of saints or monks stood here and there, their robes rotted, hollow eyes seeming to watch as I moved. The castle had no warmth. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt like it was waiting. I started with basics. Exterior shots in fading light, slow pans of empty halls, moody interior stills. Then I did what I always do. Walked the halls with my camera, talking to the audience. I shared what I knew of the castle's history, playing up tension and occasionally pausing, as if I heard something, pretending to fear ghosts I knew weren't there. A few takes like that. Walk the hall, stop in the dark, shine the light, furrow the brow, the usual tricks. Many paranormal videos are made in the editing room. But then something really made me freeze. Suddenly the sound disappeared. Ambient noises I hadn't noticed, crickets, wind, were gone. Their absence was louder than any noise before. I snapped my fingers, held my ears, relieved I hadn't gone deaf. This silence lasted as I moved inside. I kept filming. That's the job. The stranger it gets, the better the views. At least, that's what I told myself. I even exaggerated for the camera. But inside, I was uneasy. It was as if the castle had taken a deep breath and was holding it, waiting for something to happen. It wasn't until I reached the courtyard that I noticed a break in the silence. A whisper, faint behind a tall oak door. Someone was inside the chapel, whispering. I paused to listen. At first I thought it was an acoustic trick. Old stone plays sound tricks. But the more I focused, the clearer it became. A low, rasping whisper. One voice, too soft to make out words, but with rhythm. It sounded desperate, like begging. I aimed my camera at the chapel door and whispered a line I'd prepared for this moment. I couldn't turn back. This was the key shot, and I hadn't even staged it. My legs trembled, wanting to run, but I forced myself forward. The key turned harder than expected, the iron groaning in protest. The whisper stopped the moment the lock gave way, cut off mid-sentence, leaving thick silence where I could hear my pulse. Hot, stale air rushed past me as I opened the door. It smelled like burnt insects. I called out to the whispering, but no one answered. The room was empty. By now, I wasn't sure how much farther I could push the act, even for the camera. I faced only the cold, judging gaze of Archangel Michael, fresco of his triumph over a grotesque beast, presumably the devil. His eyes locked with mine, and I felt anger, hatred, panic swept over me, a deep dread that I didn't belong here. At Michael's feet was a simple hole in the floor, not especially eerie, more like a well. But that's what scared me, because from it drifted the whispering again. At first I thought someone had fallen in, so I called out. The voice went silent. After a long pause, a faint voice replied, a man begging for help. I moved closer, the camera shaking in my hand. The pit seemed shallow, maybe 4 feet wide, cut into stone, but my light didn't reach the bottom. The beam vanished into darkness so dense it looked solid. Hello, I called into the stale air. Silence. Then, after a pause, help me, barely a whisper, closer this time, not echoing from the bottom, but as if the voice had risen partway up. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold. I switched off my flashlight and turned on night vision, aiming the camera down the hole. About 15 feet down, something was clawing its way up, hard to describe. At first, I thought it was a man, but it had a thorax like a horsefly or wasp. It was wiry and bent, crawling hand over hand. It buzzed, an awful noise worse than any cicada. What I remember most are its eyes. I won't forget them. Thousands of human eyes, every color, clustered in two groups. They didn't blink or move, just stared, locked onto me like they knew I was coming, like they'd been waiting. Like a grasshopper, it leapt from the pit and clung to the wall, still staring. Its buzzing filled the room with a deafening shriek. Help me! I ran for the door, but it was faster. It jumped again, barely missing me, knocking my recorder to the floor. I didn't care about the footage anymore. I slammed the door shut and fumbled with the key. The monster pounded against it, shaking the old wood, dust falling from the frame. The key wouldn't turn. My hands were slick with sweat, shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The banging grew frantic, each impact rattling the door. Thud, thud, thud. The force grew stronger. The buzzing bled through the cracks, drilling into my skull. Help me. Then it stopped. Silence. I pressed my back to the wall, breathing hard, waiting for more, but none came. Instead, through the gap beneath the door, a thin stream of buzzing escaped. No words anymore, just a sound cycling higher and higher, until it felt like it burrowed into my teeth, my skull. Then, slowly, the buzzing faded, as if whatever was behind the door lost interest or moved on. I didn't wait to find out. I spent the rest of the night running to my car, driving to the airport, and buying the first ticket home. I left all my equipment behind, including the footage. For all I know, it's still there. Feel free to check. I expected this to be a victory, proof of the supernatural, that my grandfather's stories had truth, that there was more than what we see. I was wrong. My disbelief made me feel untouchable, but now something has seen me. Something knows me, who I am, what I fear, what I believe. I'm afraid that knowing me gives it power. Every so often I still hear that awful buzzing, distant and faint, but unmistakable. I would give anything to be a cynic again, to believe in nothing. It was easier when there was nothing. I thought my life couldn't get any worse after Eric died. I was wrong. My brother was 17 when he died in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. Eric wasn't perfect. Despite his flaws, he genuinely cared about me. Between his teasing and occasional roughhousing, he told me he was proud of my schoolwork. When our stepdad drank too much, Eric kept me safe, often facing the trouble himself. He used drugs sometimes and liked fighting, but wasn't a bully. He wasn't flawless, but I admired him. I loved him and wanted him around forever. We were driving home from the local dairy freeze, eating ice cream, joking and blasting AC/DC's Highway to Hell when it happened. The road was narrow, surrounded by forest, dipping into a valley. We were climbing the hill out of the valley when a Dubuque van suddenly appeared over the crest. Eric was singing along, doing his best Bon Scott impression. I was frozen. I couldn't speak. The shock was too much. I saw the van coming. I could have steered, screamed, or pointed. Instead, I shut my eyes and braced for impact. When I woke up, it felt like I had crash-landed from space. My muscles ached, and I couldn't open my eyes. Someone pressed on my leg, making it feel shattered. Tell them to land the bird just past. Redacted. This one still has vitals. They're weak, but alive. No, just one. Damn it, Weathers. Why did it have to be kids? An EMT's voice. I didn't understand at first. Then I remembered the van. Everything hit me like a wave. I tried to move, but couldn't. I was strapped to a gurney. I tried opening my eyes, but my face was swollen and bruised. I was scared and anxious. I tried to say something and managed a weak Eric before passing out to the sound of helicopter blades. Eric was dead. I lay half sitting in a hospital bed, staring at the tile ceiling. I glanced at the digital clock on my bedside table. The red numbers flashed steadily, almost hypnotic. On, off, 2:55. On, off, 2:56. On, off. I sighed and closed my eyes. Sleep wasn't coming. I mourned my brother in silence, blaming myself for freezing up, for watching the crash unfold. I kept replaying the van's approach. I looked at the clock again as it flashed 3:01 a.m. My heart jumped. Eric sat in the chair across from me, staring directly into my eyes. The clock's red glow lit his face with a chilling light. A large gash ran from his brow to jaw. His upper lip was torn, revealing broken and missing teeth. Each pulse of the light revealed more. Blood, bruises, bone protruding from his forearm, and his dull gray eyes. The flashing light revealed Eric looking down at himself. With raspy, broken speech he managed, "Look at me." The glow faded, and when it returned, Eric was gone. Weeks passed, but I couldn't shake the terrible image. In geometry class, his ghostly face haunted me, along with the van that shattered my life. I struggled to focus on the teacher's words until I heard snickering. Low, mocking laughter came from behind me. I looked away, avoiding eye contact. Class passed slowly. At my locker, I hurried to avoid others. I stuffed books in and slammed the door. Eric's face was suddenly inches from mine. I screamed and fell backward with a thud. His expression was one of judgment. I heard the snickers again and turned to see two boys laughing and pointing. The larger one sneered, "What's wrong with you, pussy?" Suddenly, his eyes rolled back and his head snapped to the left with a sick crack. Blood trickled from his chin as he collapsed. I froze in shock. The smaller boy dropped to his knees, crying and shaking his friend, screaming accusations. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. Then Eric growled, "Look at me." I pulled away from the scene to see Eric standing over me, his face twisted in rage, trembling. Behind me, students and teachers gathered, screaming and wailing over the fallen boy. I took a shaky breath and broke down crying. Over the years, Eric's visits were mostly harmless, but yesterday was different. My mom and stepdad were fighting. I was visiting for dinner when I heard the argument. From the kitchen, I heard whispers and then a loud slap. I left the table and rounded the corner to see my mom holding her face, staring at the floor. I demanded Terry stop. As I approached, yelling, he punched me in the jaw. I stumbled into my mom, and she fell. Terry grabbed my collar, spitting as he yelled, "Understand, I'll fuck you up. Threaten me again, and I'll kill you." His jaw suddenly snapped. Blood splattered my face. His mouth hung open in shock. He released me, clutching his throat, stepping back as his jaw hung loose on the floor. His eyes rolled back. Eric stood nearby, shaking and growling in a deep, demonic rasp. "Look at me," Terry gasped, his face turning purple, eyes bulging. as he stared at Eric. My mother screamed, grabbing my shoulder. I felt bile rise and turned as she fell into the cabinets. I begged Eric to stop, tears streaming. My mother cried and pleaded as I held her, apologizing. I sobbed, trying to reassure her. Then her ribs cracked and caved in. She gagged, blood spraying from her mouth. I'm writing this now on my phone, sitting in my car on a back road. I had to leave because I know what this looks like. I'm not stupid. I didn't kill my parents. There are sirens in the Utah forests. I work full-time at a stressful office job, the kind where you watch every second tick by on a small wall clock. Last Tuesday, Mike, my best friend since high school, texted me. "Hey Kenny, work's really getting to me. Want to go camping this weekend? There's a forest in Utah with some great views." Since I had no plans, I agreed. I'd never camped in a real forest before, and a few days away from everything sounded perfect. By Friday night, we were on the road, joking and talking about what we'd do. When we arrived, the sun was nearly set, so we grabbed our packs and hurried to find a spot. About an hour later, we were laughing by a campfire, drinking a few beers. We cooked dinner and listened to the quiet. Every now and then, a twig snapped, making me jump, much to Mike's amusement. "Kenny, it's just an animal. Stop being such a coward," he laughed. "Shut up, man. I'm just not used to being this far out," I replied. A few hours later, Mike and I were asleep in our tent. I woke up suddenly. Something felt wrong. The woods were too quiet, unnaturally quiet. I tried to sleep again, but the feeling didn't go away. I reached to shake Mike awake, but only felt his sleeping bag. Mike was gone. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. I called his name, my voice growing louder and more desperate. Then I heard it, a woman singing slowly, hauntingly beautiful. Her voice was so captivating that I walked toward it before thinking. The trees thinned, revealing a clearing. I looked around and saw Mike. He was walking through the clearing, eyes glazed over. Something about his expression snapped me back. "Mike, I was worried about you. Why did you wander off?" But he kept moving toward the singing. A chill ran down my spine as I searched for the source. Finally, I found her, sitting in the tall grass at the clearing's center, branches woven into her hair. When Mike got about 10 feet away, she stopped singing and stood up. What I saw was worse than anything I could imagine. Instead of human legs, she had the body of a deer, and the branches were antlers. Mike blinked, coming out of his trance. "Huh? Kenny, where am I? What happened?" I couldn't bring myself to move closer, even to help him. "Mike, we need to run, now." Before he could react, she let out a scream that still haunts me. A sound like an elk's call, but distorted. We turned to run. She transformed. Her antlers grew jagged and sharp. Her legs stretched and ribs protruded, making her look more insect than animal. Without thinking, I ran through the forest, heading for what I hoped was the car. Mike yelled my name behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran for what felt like miles, my lungs burning with every breath, until I reached the parking lot. Hope rose when I saw my car, the same one I had cursed just the day before. I fumbled with the keys and got in. I waited for Mike to appear through the trees. I waited a minute, then 10, then 30. He never came out. As soon as I got to town, I filed a report, even though I knew I'd never see him again. The official cause was listed as an animal attack, though they never found him. The police knew more than they said. I could see it in their eyes as I told my story. I never got my gear back, but I don't need it. I won't be camping again anytime soon. The sound beneath the house. We're often told the world rests on solid bedrock, stable and reliable, like a parent who always shows up, like gravity, like death and taxes. But when I was 7, crawling under our house, I realized that's just another lie adults tell to keep life simple and people sane. Beneath the floorboards, there's something else. Something older than concrete, older than your name, older than fear itself. And it's awake. It's been awake this entire time. It began as a sound, soft at first, like your voice muffled through a pillow but off, like the hiss of a TV tuned to a dead channel, that static that makes your teeth itch, like that, but alive. No one else heard it. Or maybe, and this is what still unsettles me, they all heard it but chose to ignore it. Because what do you do when you know something that breaks everything? You swallow it. You smile at dinner. You pass the salt. The crawl space smelled like wet newspapers and something else. The scent of old libraries mixed with copper pennies and sweat-soaked fear. My knees pressed into dirt that wasn't really dirt. Too soft. Like the inside of someone's cheek. The wooden beams above weren't just creaking. They pulsed. Not breathing, but something else. Something counting. By 13, I couldn't pretend anymore. The sound under the house wasn't some metaphor my therapist suggested. Her eyes kind, but always distant, like she was reading subtitles behind my head. The sound was real as wood rot, as real as a splinter scraping bone. Listen, the sound had texture, sometimes smooth, like the inside of an eyelid if you could turn it inside out. Sometimes rough, like radio static between stations. Those spots where you swear you hear voices trying to call home. I recorded it on my phone, but the files didn't just get corrupted. They transformed into pictures. Rooms I'd never been in, with furniture covered in white sheets that moved. Not from wind, just breathing. At night, the sound grew more complex. It formed parts, arms, legs, intentions. It whispered through the heating vents. Not words exactly, but something your brain tried and failed to translate. Mom never said anything, but she ground her teeth so hard in sleep, she cracked 2 molars. Dad started drinking coffee at midnight, saying he just wasn't tired anymore. My sister, she began sleepwalking. But walking is generous. She floated through the house like underwater, fingers tracing painful shapes in the air. One night I found her at the top of the basement stairs, mouth moving silently. But those words came from beneath the floorboards in frequencies that made our dog vomit. Not just vomit geometric shapes, perfect triangles of bile. Fast forward. You grow up, move out, get your own place, and tell yourself you escaped the curse from your childhood home. Wrong. Every house hides the same hollow beneath. I've lived in, let me count, 17 places over 10 years. Apartments, houses, a trailer in Arizona, even a yurt during a finding myself phase. Doesn't matter. Everyone had the same dead corner where shadows pooled like oil. Every One at a spot where your peripheral vision caught movement that vanished when you looked directly. The addresses changed, but the coordinates stayed the same. Not latitude and longitude, different coordinates written in the calcium deposits in your bones. You try to drown it out. Pills help for a while. Ambient silences the breathing walls, but then you start seeing the maintenance crews. They're not human. They look human until you catch them in profile. Podcasts distract you until you realize the hosts say your name between words, so quietly you almost miss it. Dating. I only dated people more broken than me, hoping their demons would consume mine. Fighting fire with fire. I met a woman who said she was born unable to dream. Sarah. Sandra. Her name shifted slightly each time she said it. After 3 months, I caught her talking to the space under her bed. Not talking to it, talking with it. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled, too many teeth showing, and said, "What bed?" There was no bed. I'd been sleeping suspended, on nothing for 3 months. Then, the night everything changed. I woke paralyzed. Sleep paralysis, doctors call it. Evolution's holdover, they say. Your brain locking your body still to prevent acting out dreams. But that's just a grown-up bedtime story. The truth, the sound finally caught up with you. After all those years of running, it was already inside, nestled in your spine like a second nervous system. Patient as cancer. Your body knows. Always has. That's why your hands sometimes move wrong when you're not paying attention. Why your reflection blinks before you do. Why certain angles in certain rooms make you want to scream. The hum is the engine. The hum is the author. The hum is the only real thing. Everything else, including you, is just what it imagines when bored. Your memories, the hum writes them, edits them. Every night isn't rest, it's revision. Your personality is a facade, a distraction, to keep you from seeing that reality's walls are cardboard, painted to look like brick. Sleep isn't recovery. It's agreeing to forget so you can pretend again. Think. Can you remember learning to tie your shoes? Can you picture your first grade teacher's face? Those aren't gaps. They're edits. The hum keeps only what fits the pattern, deleting the rest like scenes cut from a film. You think you're building a life, but you're just surfing the same broken program where all actors wear your face. But tonight you're awake, truly awake, and the sound knows it. The walls are breathing, literally. Drywall expands and contracts like lung tissue. Touch it, warm, alive. The paint bubbles into words you almost understand before smoothing again. This is what happens when you stay conscious past scheduled maintenance. This is what they don't want you to see. If you're reading this, you're inside it now. Part of the loop. The story isn't a metaphor. Metaphors are how we pretend. The truth isn't true. Every forgotten dream was an instruction manual. Every bout of insomnia was your brain warning you. Look at your hands. Count your fingers. Count again. Different number. That's the hum showing its seams. The builder's watermark. We're all signatures of something faceless, because it is all faces. The builder wants you to remember what you are, not who. What? You're not meant to sleep through this. Those who get their 8 hours, they're gone, replaced by something that looks like them but blinks sideways. The insomniacs, the anxious, those who can't turn off their minds. We're the antibodies. Our racing thoughts are reality's immune system trying to reject the infection of ordinary life. So tonight, stay awake, get up, listen, really listen. Find where the sound is loudest. Could be basement, attic, or that closet you avoid. Follow it through walls if you must. Walls aren't real anyway. Nothing is as real as you think. When you find the source, and you will, because it wants you to, don't run. Running is what prey does. Your family now. Ask it your true name. Not the one your parents gave, but the one written in your bones' frequency. Ask it to teach you to read yourself backwards. Backwards isn't the opposite of forward. It shows what you really are. Not a person having experiences, but an experience pretending to be a person. The hum isn't under the house. The house is inside the hum. Everything is. Every atom, thought, and moment is a note in a song playing since before existed. You're not the listener, not the sound. You're the space between notes, the pause that makes music possible, the silence giving sound its shape. Now you're awake. You hear it, not with ears, but the part of you between heartbeats, the moment after, forgetting what you were about to remember. The crawl space was never under the house. The house was always inside the crawl space. And the crawl space, it's everywhere. Between your thoughts, the gap between stimulus and response, the place you go when you're nowhere. Welcome home. You've always been here. We all have. The floorboards know your true name now. They repeat it. A lullaby in reverse. A wake-up call like a scream played backward through honey. Can you hear it? Of course you can. You've been hearing it your whole life. You just called it something else. The merman is not your friend. I should have known better. If you find a beautiful fish stranded on the shore, don't take it home. My fiancé and I had just moved into a stunning top-floor apartment with tall windows and an ocean view. We were both hopeless romantics. He said the sound of the waves helped him fall asleep. So, we combined our savings and bought it as a wedding gift to ourselves. But most nights while I rested against him, the waves crashed endlessly in my ear, keeping me awake. Still, it was hard to complain when the view got so many likes on social media. One morning, still half asleep, we grabbed our hot coffee cups and went for a barefoot walk, wanting to enjoy some quiet time before lunch. The beach was empty except for a jogger with his dog. He wore a yellow overall. I could have mistaken him for a Teletubby, but he was our neighbor, so we waved. The salty air tossed our hair, and the day was beautiful except for the clouds. Gray streaks crossed the sky. Wet sand pulled at our feet. And then I saw it. A fish. At first it looked like stained glass. Red, blue, green, orange fins shimmering. So pretty. It flopped on the sand, mouth opening and closing. I took a sip of coffee, dumped the rest, gently scooped the fish into my cup, then filled it with the seawater. My fiancé smiled, dimple deepening. Our first pet, he joked. I thought it'd be a puppy. Yeah, isn't it beautiful? I said, slipping my hand into his, and the three of us walked home. He prepared a quick sandwich for brunch, while I cleaned out a pickle jar, poured in the seawater from the cup, and placed the fish inside. It swam around, alive, thankfully. I tore off a bit of sandwich and sprinkled breadcrumbs in, but the fish ignored them, watching me. Fish don't have eyelids, but those glaring yellow eyes felt unsettling. I lost my appetite. I moved the jar to the coffee table, telling myself I'd release it later. But after my fiancé took his last bite, the fish had nearly tripled in size, filling most of the jar. "That's strange," he said. "Yeah, but it's our pet," he added. "I wonder if it'll keep growing if we put it in the tub." "Nah, it might not survive without seawater. Let's just release it." Suddenly, the fish slammed into the glass violently. The jar shattered. My fiancé rushed to gather the shards while I scooped up the fish, heavy like a grapefruit, as if it had absorbed water, and hurried to the bathroom. I ran the tap and slowly filled the tub, submerging the flailing fish, washing the slippery smell off my hands. I watched it flash colors like stained glass. How beautiful. I reached in to stroke it, but it bit me. I yanked my finger away, a tiny pinprick of blood forming. Instinctively, I sucked it, and the fish grinned. Rows of sharp, tiny teeth. I wasn't imagining it. Panic made me jump back. "What's wrong?" my fiancé asked, crouching to pick up glass. "Nothing. Let's just return it to the sea." He stood, inspecting my finger. "Yeah, maybe we should get a puppy instead." I laughed nervously. We carried the fish in a bucket down to the shore. It was heavy and growing. Once released into the waves, the strange incident seemed over. I high-fived my fiancé, and we focused on our upcoming wedding. I double-checked the guest list and RSVPs until my phone warmed in my hand. Curious, I searched for the stained glass-colored fish online. Nothing matched except a hand-drawn fantasy illustration, claiming it was the temporary form of a merman prince. I dismissed it. Life returned to normal, or so I hoped. The next day, I knocked on our neighbor's door to invite him to the wedding. No answer. I slipped the invite into his letterbox. Later, yellow police tape blocked the apartment complex. A crowd gathered. At the center, the neighbor's dog howled near a body wrapped in blankets, stained with dark red. It was our neighbor. Turned away, hiding my face against my fiancé's chest. A nearby witness, clearly shaken, couldn't explain what happened. I asked someone. "What occurred?" A pale woman shrugged. "Robbery," they said. "The thief took his clothes but left wallet and phone. We didn't ask why anyone would want his dirty overalls. I heard he lost his legs in the attack. The gruesome crime unsettled the whole building. From our window, I saw residents packing up. Should we sell the apartment?" I asked my fiancé. "Let's wait. When they build the shopping center, prices might recover." I nodded, but the question stayed. Our wedding day arrived too soon to change plans. By the sea, a warm breeze fluttered the altar's curtains. We vowed to get through the day. The sun shone. Family and friends were quiet about the recent events, but smiled warmly. Sand-filled shoes. My mother's shawl fluttered. I walked in my white gown, heavy with tulle, but beautiful. As my fiancé and I faced each other to kiss, a wave crashed suddenly, followed by a strange, high-pitched shriek. We turned to the sea. There it was, the fish. It looked like our former pet, now with a human head, neck, torso, and limbs, covered in the same colorful scales. Most unsettling were the yellow jogging overalls, the neighbors. My fiancé blocked most of my view, but I stifled a scream when I glimpsed its face. My neighbors, grinning with sharp teeth. Guests stood trying to push it back. Chairs toppled, ribbons scattered. Shouts and screams filled the shore as ants carried children away. Chaos, then darkness fell. A massive wave crashed over us. We scrambled toward the building, some falling in the sand. I tripped. Sand scraped my cheek. A strange mix of shrieks and growls filled the air, harsher than the ocean's sound. The creature came after me. Someone pulled me up, but its grip was slippery. I dared not look, but I smelled the fishy odor. The crashing waves diluted it as the creature pulled me underwater. It hurt less than I expected. I felt strangely light in its grasp. I held my breath, eyes shut. Then I heard it say softly, "How pretty." I choked on salt water, struggling to escape. The heavy gown slowed me down. Suddenly, my husband's hands grabbed me, kicking the creature away. The fabric tore as I pushed to swim upward. I reached the shore, gasping, and together we ran. Time passed. Night fell. We were in the ER waiting room. My uncle had a cardiac arrest. The whole family was there, but no one spoke of the incident. My husband's jacket rested on my shoulders. My mother's shawl wrapped my waist. A kind wedding organizer brought us boxed dinners. We ate quietly until hearing my uncle was stable. When asked about the chaos, we said it was the bad weather, except for my young cousin, who whispered between sobs, "A sea monster." My aunt quickly took her outside. Yes, bad weather was the official story. A merman ruining a wedding. Who would believe that? We couldn't let rumors ruin us, but we knew the truth. We said our goodbyes, went home, and moved forward. We stayed in the apartment since its value plummeted. We adopted the neighbor's dog, which seemed attached to the place. It wasn't perfect, but the view still looked like a living painting. My fiancé slept soundly every night, but the waves never stopped crashing and kept calling me pretty. So I got up. How could I sleep? I had to write this down. If you find a beautiful fish stranded on the shore, please don't take it home, because the merman is not your friend. The voice in my headphones. I never believed in ghosts, at least not until this spring. My name is Alex Turner, and I work long hours at an IT firm. I live alone in a small apartment in Seattle. To unwind after a day of screens and coding, I usually listen to music through my new wireless headphones. Last Christmas, I treated myself to a high-end pair of Eargenix PX3 earbuds, reputed to offer the best sound quality available. They're comfortable, nearly invisible, and have excellent battery life. No complicated smartphone apps, just straightforward Bluetooth connectivity. One Tuesday night around 11:30 p.m., I finished debugging some JavaScripts and leaned back at my desk. The apartment was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the wind tapping the window. I put on my headphones, grabbed a beer, and started a movie. About 40 minutes in, I paused because something unusual happened. I heard a faint, clear voice in my ear. Alex. It sounded exactly like my girlfriend, Marissa. She had visited over the weekend and accidentally left her headphones behind. I froze. Even though I was wearing my own earbuds, I was certain I heard Marissa whispering my name. My apartment is small, so I turned expecting to see her standing in the doorway, smiling, but the hallway was empty. The TV was paused. Silence filled the room. I shrugged it off, thinking I imagined it, and resumed watching. 5 minutes later, after a scene I barely remember, the voice came again. this time more urgent, with a hint of panic. Alex, I can't. Alex, help me. The voice was trembling, unmistakably Marissa's, same tone, same accent. I ripped off the headphones, heart pounding. The apartment was silent. I even turned the headphones off. Assuming it was stress-induced hallucination, I poured the rest of my beer and switched to a comedy show to calm down. 10 minutes later, I tried the movie again. At first, nothing happened. Then a whisper at the edge of hearing. Alex, I hear something. Come here. My blood ran cold. The voice wasn't Marissa's this time. It was higher-pitched, almost childlike, but still female. I sat up abruptly. Who's there? I called out, but only a dry laugh returned. Then, silence. The headphones resumed playing The Rolling Waves by Wild Coast. My hands shook as I struggled to remove the headphones. They slapped the desk, and I slammed my laptop shut. Nope, I muttered, standing. I paced the kitchen, eyes darting to dark corners. My phone read 11:50 p.m. Maybe I was just tired. Texted Marissa. Hey, you okay? Do you hear my name or something? No reply. She was on a work trip. Late messages from me weren't unusual, so I figured she'd respond tomorrow. To calm myself, I took out the charger and set the headphones on the table, powered off completely. Maybe a reset would help if the voices were a glitch. I stepped onto the balcony for fresh air. A cold spring breeze swept in. The city lights shimmered below. I closed my eyes and tried to shake the unease. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I found her. My finger hovered over the reply button. Was this a prank? I hadn't shared photos of Marissa or details about my apartment being dark. And who texts at this hour? I replied, who is this? Seconds later, a new message. I'll show you. Then, my phone alerted me to an email from an unknown sender with a single attachment. I hesitated, but opened it. The photo showed my living room, me asleep on the couch, earbuds still in, a half-finished beer on the table. My TV and laptop screens were on exactly as I'd left them. I startled awake, falling off the stool. My heart raced. I was sleeping. I never dozed off wearing earbuds. People pass by all the time, and my laptop's Wi-Fi disconnects if idle. And who took the photo? The room was pitch black in the image, yet my earbuds glowed faintly blue. Panic took hold. I grabbed my phone to respond, but all messages were gone. The text thread vanished. The email alert disappeared. Internet was still connected. I refreshed the inbox. No new messages. Now certain something was seriously wrong, I took the headphones to the bedroom. I stood there, trying to stay calm while examining them. The PX3 buds have a blue indicator light when powered on. I pressed the button. The light blinked 3 times, then went out. They were definitely off. I set them on the bed. No way they could whisper if powered down, right? The apartment felt oppressively silent. I texted a friend, Malik. Dude, this is weird. I'm crashing at your place. My apartment feels creepy. His reply was instant. Malik, what happened? Me. I'll explain tomorrow. Think someone broke in. Malik, you sure? I'm up. I caught his message before replying. I'm 2 blocks away. Want me there? I hesitated. I didn't want attention, but someone had taken my photo while I slept, then vanished without signs of forced entry. If they could hack my laptop and send fake messages, I didn't want to stay. Yeah, bring coffee, I texted. 15 minutes later, Malik arrived, bleary-eyed. Relief flooded me when I saw him in the hallway light. This is messed up, I whispered as he entered. I told him everything. The voices, the messages, the photo. Malik frowned. Sounds like some internet prank or phishing scam, he said, dropping his bag, but the thread disappeared. Yeah, and the email. He frowned deeper. Did you get my text about the security cameras? I set them to auto-record after hearing your door frame creak last night. He pulled out his phone. We returned to the living room where the smoke detector's red LEDs cast a low glow. Tell me when you got that photo. If I open the footage from 11:50 p.m., he said. I gave him the time and sat down. He fiddled with his phone. Got it, he said, showing me the live feed. Nothing. Wait. Near the couch, the feed flickered. The figure on the couch was me, sleeping, head lolling, clothes disheveled. The timestamp showed 11:48 p.m., then it jumped to 11:51. I was gone, but crouched next to the couch was a black shadow, shaped like a person bending over me. It had no clear outline, only a bulky impression and an arm reaching down. Then the image cut out into static and switched cameras. Jesus, Malik whispered. I think it's... I leaned forward, pointing. The timestamp was now 11:55. In the kitchen camera, I appeared standing by the fridge with a glass, but the shadow was there, half hidden behind me. The figure was tall, hunched, holding something. It stepped forward, glimmered for a moment, a twisted grin, and lunged. I collapsed, breaking the glass. Malik lunged at the screen, but it went black. He looked pale. What did I just see? That was me, I said shakily. The figure grabbed me from behind. I blacked out. Silence. The footage was disturbing. Malik removed his glasses. This isn't a prank or glitch. Something's in your apartment. I felt my blood run cold. I jumped up and switched off all cameras despite Malik's protests. Darkness enveloped the room except for the TV's standby light. Malik moved closer. Do you think it's the headphones or the messages? I glanced at the powered-off buds on the nightstand. I don't know, but it's connected to those headphones. It can speak, control my laptop to send emails. It's inside the tech, wherever there's a mic or camera. He nodded slowly. Maybe an AI experiment gone wrong. Some hacker. No, too coordinated. Your smart assistants can't do this. He grimaced. Or maybe your headphones aren't just Bluetooth. Maybe they're haunted. I stared at him, horrified. But he had a point. The voices stopped when I turned the headphones off until the photo message arrived. If it's an entity, maybe it uses the headset to enter. Stay here, I said. Try to sleep. I'll call someone, police or IT security, though they'll likely blame software. He shrugged and lay on the couch with a half-empty whiskey bottle. If it tries anything, wake me. Will do. I sat on the love seat, rubbing my eyes. The apartment was too quiet now. I hoped I was hallucinating, but I knew better. Around 3 a.m., I dozed off on the couch. The police would likely report unknown intruder, so I kept quiet. My sleep was restless, dreams of being held down, cold breath on my neck. At dawn, I woke slumped over, pillows tangled. By morning, I was exhausted. Malik had left. I left a note explaining his girlfriend wasn't answering, and that I didn't have time to explain. I left a breakfast bar and water on the table, cleaned up broken glass, took a shower, audio off, and checked the cameras from my phone. All was quiet. Needed to be sure this thing couldn't follow me. I bagged the headphones and laptop and carried them to my car's trunk. In the bathroom mirror, I almost dropped them. Behind me, a dark shape loomed. I spun around. The room was empty. The mirror reflected a vague outline. Tall, crooked, with a pale mask-like face. In its hands was my phone, buzzing with a message. I managed to slap it away. My phone slid across the dial. Screen cracked. The mirror returned to normal. Nothing behind me. Panting, I grabbed my keys. That voice wasn't the girl's anymore. It was older, dry, like static on an old radio. I'd already pulled out onto the street and sped away without looking back. I don't know what it is, but it knows my name, my home, my devices. It's in my technology now, maybe even part of my mind. Tonight I'm in New York, flying out on the first flight. I booked a last-minute business trip and made up an excuse. Malik hasn't heard from me. He'll assume I left for work. Hopefully, no one there has devices linked to mine. I found an unlocked computer in the JFK office lounge. I'm saving this as unnamed post, TXT, because who would believe it otherwise? In a few hours, I'll board a flight to Los Angeles, where the sun actually rises. I thought this would be a funny glitch headphone story, but it's not. If this ends up on Raw No Sleep, I'm sorry. I wish it was a joke. I still hear faint whispers when I put on these rented earbuds at the lounge, but maybe that's just paranoia. This thing followed me. Maybe it can use any microphone. Listen, if you receive strange messages at 3:33 a.m. or use unusual tech, disconnect immediately. Don't assume it's just a software bug. I'm boarding now. Whatever it is, it's real. Help. I think the sun is watching me. I feel like the sun is watching me, no matter where I am. I sense its heat pressing against my back. It doesn't matter if it's midnight or raining. Even if I'm in the basement or inside an elevator, I swear the sun's intense warmth is always there. Its rays seem to touch my neck, moving back and forth, lingering in my mind. I know it's watching, observing me. Lately, I've isolated myself deep inside my house because I can't stand to see it anymore. The sun is watching me. I just know it. This all began about 2 weeks ago. I'm a freelance astrophotographer, and I often set up my gear in the backyard to capture images of celestial bodies. This month, I decided to check off a bucket list goal, capturing the clearest photo of the sun possible. It's kind of a rite of passage in my community. I've always admired our star. The warm summer heat has always been my favorite, and the sun's power and beauty are unmatched in our solar system. If you haven't guessed, I'm a bit of a space enthusiast. June was supposed to bring perfect weather here in Arizona. I set up my planetary camera and began the long process of snapping thousands of computer-generated photos of the sun. This process is delicate and can be ruined by bad weather or camera movement, but the end result is worth it. When done right, you don't just get an orange ball. You see plasma bursts and massive dark spots that dwarf Earth. After about 5 hours of sun exposure, I started processing the images. To my surprise and confusion, the sun wasn't in any of the 150,000 photos. There was nothing, not stars, planets, or flares. I carefully reviewed everything to find what went wrong, but it wasn't just blank images. There was something in them, a dark, overpowering shape that seemed to move closer with each photo. It made no sense. Thinking it was a technical glitch, I switched to my Canon camera for a different style of photo. I set it up again and shot, but once more, no sun appeared. I was baffled and searched online to see if others had the same problem, but all issues were linked to equipment failure. I was confident my setup was fine. I've been photographing planets and comets for years, so I packed up and put my gear away. That night, the sun haunted my dreams. I saw the photos on my computer, but this time, the sun was there, furious and staring straight at me. Each image I clicked showed her rays piercing through the screen and into my soul. The sun is watching me, I thought, and I woke up suddenly. This vivid dream made me late for work. Whatever strange visions I had would have to wait, but for the next week, I couldn't shake the feeling that the sun's eyes were on me wherever I went. The idea of photographing anything in the sky now makes me nauseous. Even when I close my eyes, I see daylight, a bright, burning light shining through my eyelids. My thoughts feel like they're melting under the heat. It's like there's a 10,000-degree fire in my chest, and no antacid can fix it. I've tried. I don't know what to do. What do you even tell a psychiatrist? I can't afford to take time off work, but I'm close to my breaking point. The sun is watching me, and I'm not sure how to stop it. We were sent to investigate a lost outpost in Afghanistan. What we found there wasn't human. The light filtering through the sand-colored canvas walls of the briefing tent was sickly and pale. It did nothing to block the intense heat of Kandahar, which pressed in from every direction, seeping beneath my fatigues and clinging to my skin. My team, known as Ares 1, sat on unstable folding chairs around a table made of scavenged plywood. We were the ones sent when situations went beyond what bullets and explosives could solve. We were ghosts sent to find other ghosts. Across the warped table sat Elias Vance, called Deacon, calmly polishing the lens of his spotter scope with an almost eerie focus. His silence was a steady island amid my growing unease. To my left, Corporal Ramirez Rico worked a toothpick from one side of his mouth to the other. His leg bounced nervously against the dry earth, a quiet sign of tension. Our medic, Specialist Miller, known simply as Doc, was sketching bones and organs in his notepad, as if mapping a broken landscape, seeing the world as something to heal. By the projector screen stood Lieutenant Wallace, a fresh academy graduate so rigid you could tell he feared breaking if he moved. Colonel Matthews pushed aside the canvas flap and entered the heat. His face, marked by sun and hard wars, showed no patience for unnecessary words. "All right, listen up." A dim, sterile light lit the screen, revealing a layout of sand-filled barriers and tents. A small, temporary scar on a land that would soon erase it. The outpost was a child's toy at the foot of the jagged Hindu Kush Mountains. A graveyard of nations. "This is forward operating base, Kilo 7, Matthews said flatly. "It went dark at 0400 yesterday." Rico's toothpick dropped to the dust. "Taliban?" I asked. "That's the assumption," Matthews replied, though his eyes told a harder story. A company from the 10th Mountain was stationed here. 68 men. Kilo 7, nicknamed the Devil's Anvil, was set up 3 months ago to monitor smuggling routes through the Doragar Range. He pressed a key, zooming in on the outpost. There was no fire, no damage, no sign of violence. Just a place wiped clean. Radio silence. No distress calls. No satellite pings from emergency beacons. A drone flyover this morning showed no life. No bodies. No enemies. Just nothing. The tent fell silent with a weight older than us all. Command wants this handled quietly. They fear a chemical attack or a mass desertion, though deserting here makes no sense. Your mission, Sergeant Carter, he said, locking eyes with me, is to take your team, fly in, assess the situation, and report back. Find out what happened. Just us, sir? I asked, the question feeling small. A cold stone settled in my stomach. 5 men for 68, missing. You're fast and discreet. Sending a battalion would cause an international incident. We need eyes on the ground first. Find out what we're dealing with. He glanced around, measuring us like tools for a difficult task. You're the best I have. Get it done. The Black Hawk was a noisy, tense vessel. We flew low and fast, over a landscape scarred and broken, a brown cloth clenched in God's fist. Then the mountains rose to meet us. When the outpost came into view, it matched the drone's report. Empty. A ghost town of sand and wire. The pilot landed 50 meters away, and the rotor wash kicked up a blinding dust cloud. Once the engine stopped, an eerie silence replaced the noise. No generators, no distant voices, not even insects. Only the wind's sorrowful howl through razor wire, like a hired mourner. All right, Wallace, you're on point, I said into the quiet. Rico, watch our rear. Deacon, find high ground. Doc, stay with me. We moved carefully, rifles sweeping the still air. The compound gate hung open like a mouth that forgot how to close. Inside, a small war was left unfinished on a crate. A Humvee sat with its hood raised, its engine parts laid out neatly on a tarp. In the mess tent, a plate of food hardened on a table, flies trapped in dried ketchup blood. No blood, no spent brass, Rico reported over comms. They didn't fire a shot. Then Deacon's voice came from above, distant and calm. I'm on the south watchtower, Sergeant. I see nothing. No tracks leading away. It's like they vanished. We checked the barracks, tent by tent, lifting canvas flaps in these silent tombs. Each cot was neatly made. Photos of wives and children were taped to foot lockers, small talismans that failed. Books lay broken on nightstands. This wasn't the work of men fleeing. You don't leave behind pictures of your family. This was erasure. Something worse. A strange coppery scent hung in the air. Blood. But beneath it, something feral and sickly sweet. Sarge, you have to see this. Doc called from near the comms tent. We found him kneeling beside a steel shipping container. 3 deep gouges were carved into its side. The metal peeled back like a bitter rind. The marks were about a foot apart. No animal I know could make these, Doc said. The edges aren't claw marks. They're serrated. A cold dread swept through me, unrelated to the mountain chill. Following Doc's gaze, we saw where the men of Kilo 7 had gone. Their bodies, or what remained, were piled in the long shadow of a HESCO barrier, all 68, butchered. Limbs torn from sockets, torsos cracked open and cleaned out. This was not a kill, it was feeding. I'd seen what war does to bodies, but This was something new, not human. Doc turned away, sick in the sand. Wallace stood frozen, his face drained of color. Even Rico was silent, gripping his weapon tightly. What in God's name? Wallace whispered. My eyes traced a dark trail in the sand, leading not to the gate but to the mountain's sheer rock face, a cave hidden in shadow. The smell was stronger there. Deacon, you see this? My voice sounded distant. I do, Sarge. A cave entrance. Drag marks led right to it. The truth settled over me. The answer wasn't in the outpost. It was in that dark, waiting hole. Whatever had done this came down from the mountain and dragged its victims home. We can't go in, Wallace said, his voice brittle. We should report this and call an airstrike. Flatten the mountain. The colonel ordered us to assess. Lieutenant, I replied, though every part of me agreed with him. We don't know what we're facing. If it's a biological agent, bombing could spread it. We need intel. Jake's right. Deacon's calm voice came over the radio. We don't go in blind, but we have to look. I'll stay on overwatch. I can see the entrance. So, we prepared ourselves grimly, swapping rifles for close quarters weapons that felt little better than talismans against such darkness. I took the shotgun and strapped on every grenade we had. With Deacon anchoring us from above, the four of us moved toward the cave. At its mouth, the air turned cold, the heat leached away by a chill that had waited a long time. The darkness inside was thick and absolute, swallowing our flashlight beams. Rico, your point, I said quietly. Move slow. Call out every 10 meters. We crossed the threshold, leaving the world of sunlight and reason behind. The cave floor was slick with a dark, viscous substance I did not want to name. The passage was narrow and damp. Our lights swept frantically over walls that bore fossilized marks of forgotten nightmares. After 20 meters, the space opened into a vast, lightless cathedral. Here were the nests, grotesque totems woven from torn uniforms, razor wire, and clumps of human hair. Among them lay bones, gnawed, splintered, cracked. Jesus Christ, Wallace breathed. It's a lair. Then came a sound, a wet, jittering clicking echoing in the hollow dark. Not a growl or a scream, but the noise of thousands of mandibles moving in unison, a sound that bypassed the ear and settled deep in the soul. It came from all around, from tunnels, crevices, and dark hollows. Contact, Rico shouted, but had no idea where to aim. Then they emerged from the shadows. They resembled men, but were a grotesque distortion of that shape, taller than humans, with limbs too long and bent at unnatural angles. Their skin was pale and translucent, stretched tight over muscles and bones. Where eyes should have been, there was only smooth, sealed flesh, a blind, judgmental face. There, jaws unhinged, revealing rows of sharp, needle-like teeth. They moved with twitching, silent speed, their serrated claws scraping the stone. The first of them dropped silently from the ceiling, landing behind Lieutenant Wallace. Before the mind could fully process the sight, an impossibly long arm pierced through the lieutenant's chest from behind, bursting out of his sternum as a wet, gleaming spike. He exhaled softly, blood and ruin escaping with it, his eyes wide in final damning shock. The creature withdrew its arm, and the lieutenant collapsed against the stone, Then, the world shrank to the muzzle flashes of our guns and the chaos of our screams. "Open fire!" I shouted, but the cavern swallowed the sound as if it never existed. Rico responded with the M249, its roar a desperate and blind prayer against the rock. Tracers stitched a line of red destruction across the creature's pale flesh. It shrieked, a sound that set teeth grinding inside your own skull, and took a step back, but did not fall. Two more emerged from the darkness to replace it. My shotgun spoke its single word into the gloom, turning the nearest figure's face into shredded flesh, yet it pressed forward, its eyeless head a raw ruin of torn flesh and sharp teeth. I fired again, and its skull exploded in a spray of bone and gore across the cavern wall. "They're everywhere," Doc yelled, firing his M4 in quick, precise bursts that made no difference. "Fall back to the entrance." But the path we came through was now blocked by them, a new wave pouring from the cave's depths, their clicking a maddening, discordant chorus. We were trapped. One lunged at Rico as his weapon clicked dry. He shoved the barrel into its split-toothed mouth, but the gun gave only a hollow click. The creature's jaws crushed the barrel, bending the steel. Another attacked from the side, claws slicing through his armor and flesh like it was cloth. He screamed a high final cry, cut short by the sound of breaking bone. His legs kicked in the air as they dragged him into a deeper darkness. "Rico's down. He's gone," I yelled into the radio. "Sarge, I'm coming to you." "Hold on," Deacon's voice replied. Something hit me from the side with sudden, sinewy force. Its hot graveyard breath pressed against my face, teeth scraping at my helmet visor, searching for entry. I raised my shotgun and fired my last shell into where its throat should be. The recoil burned my shoulder, but the creature's head exploded. I scrambled away and drew my pistol. "Doc, get to me." I saw him then, Doc Miller, kneeling by the wreck of Wallace, a man of medicine, but here none of his knowledge mattered. He just stared at the carnage, at a body undone in ways his science could not explain. "Miller, move," I shouted. He looked up, his face pale and empty. Two creatures closed in on him, one on each side. He made no sound as they tore him apart. The wet, ripping noise of a man unmade will haunt me forever. I was alone. The clicking sound circled tighter, closing in. I was already dead in that foul cave at the edge of the world. Then a shot cracked from the cave entrance. The creature stalking me collapsed, a bullet piercing its chest. "Jake, this way," Deacon called. He stood in the narrow tunnel like a man from a better world. His sniper rifle, meant for patience and distance, was now a brutal weapon. In close quarters, he fired again and again, each shot a commandment, finding its mark among the writhing shapes, buying me a moment, then another. I ran past him into the tight stone corridor. "They got them," I gasped, the foul air choking me. "They got them all." "I know," he said, grim as stone while chambering another round. "We have to block this passage and make our stand here." He kicked the wall, sending a trickle of rocks and rubble to partly block the tunnel behind us. A small barrier against a hunger that had all the time in the world. We were two men against a hive, trapped in the heart of the anvil. Beyond the loose rocks, the creature scratched and scraped, a relentless industry of hunger. The jittering never stopped. "How many mags you got?" Deacon asked, calm in the darkness. 2 for my pistol. You, 1.5 for the rifle, he said. Maybe 20 rounds. Not nearly enough. Sarah, I whispered, a prayer to a God who wasn't listening. I saw her face, her belly swollen with the child I would never meet. A dry, broken laugh escaped me. Don't do that, Jake, Deacon said softly but firmly. Don't give up. Stay with me. He was right. I shook my head, banishing the ghosts. Okay. What's the plan, Deacon? He looked down the passage, toward the faint daylight. We can't stay. They'll claw through or wait us out. Our only chance is to run straight to the Helo's radio. Through the outpost. They could be there too. Better out there in the open than stuck in here. The scratching grew frantic. A pale, 3-fingered hand wriggled through a gap. My pistol bugged as I fired, and the hand vanished with a sharp shriek. It's now or never, Deacon said, holding a fragmentation grenade. On my mark. I throw this, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Get to that chopper and call in a fire mission on this cursed place. What about you? I asked, knowing the answer. He smiled briefly. A sad, fleeting thing. The sniper's job is to cover the retreat. He pressed a small, worn cross into my palm, its metal warm from his skin. Go home, Jake. No, we go together. There's no time for both of us, he said, voice iron and final. The barricade shifted as a great stone moved, revealing a leering, eyeless face. You have a life waiting. I have my sins too. Face. Now, go. He pulled the pin and released the spoon, counting 2 beats before tossing the grenade over the rocks. For the Lord is my shepherd, he shouted into the darkness. I didn't hesitate. The moment the grenade left his hand, I turned and ran, down the slick, dark tunnel toward the light, faster than I thought possible. The explosion behind me was a heavy force pushing me forward. Behind the blast came the crack of Deacon's rifle, the shrieks of the damned, and the sound of a good man's last stand. I emerged from the cave into blinding sunlight. The fresh air was grace I didn't deserve. I didn't look back. I ran across the dead compound, past silent cots and frozen gear, shadows of 68 men running with me. I was almost to the helicopter when it struck, from the roof of the comms tent. It must have found another way out. A massive beast, its pale hide scarred and mottled with age, blocked my path. It hissed triumphantly, splitting its face open. My pistol was useless weight in my hand. My rifle was back in the cave. There was no soldier left in me, only an animal shown its own grave and indifferent. I grabbed a heavy wrench beside the Humvee. The creature's claws slashed through my armor and into my chest, pain blazing like fire. But I swung with all my hate and fear. The wrench struck its head with a sound like a melon, breaking on stone. It reeled. I swung again, and again. I didn't stop until its eyeless face was a shattered mess of pulp and bone. It collapsed, twitching, and I stood over it, breath ragged, chest aflame, clutching the small cross tight. I stumbled into the Black Hawk and collapsed on the radio, leaving a bloody smear on the dials. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I rasped, voice strange to me. This is Sergeant Carter. Ari's 1. Kilo 7 is compromised. Bring everything. Burn it all. Burn the mountain. I woke in a sterile hospital room in Landstuhl, Germany. Clean sheets unfamiliar on my skin. Sarah slept in a chair beside me. her hand resting on her swollen belly, our son waiting to be born. For a moment I let myself believe it was all a fever dream from that land of dust. Then I'd breathe in and feel the fire in my chest where they stitched me up, see the thick bandages, and know the truth. Men in crisp uniforms and clean offices listened as I told them about the cave, the nests woven from wire and hair, the eyeless creatures with bone claws. I spoke of Rico's capture, Doc's death, Wallace's silent fall, and Deacon's final stand with his rifle singing. I told it all. When I finished, the colonel regarded me not as a man, but as a problem. "Sergeant," he said, steepling his fingers, "you suffered severe trauma. The 10th Mountain was ambushed by a large insurgent force. In your shock, your mind created a myth to mask an ugly but ordinary reality. They had bombed the coordinates I gave them, turning the mountain into black glass. They buried the cave, and the truth. The official report spoke only of an ambush and overwhelming numbers. It described Sergeant Carter, sole survivor, whose mind was broken by the horrors he faced. A cleaner story. They awarded me a medal for lost blood and an honorable discharge, saying I was whole and ready for the world again. I came home, held my wife, saw my son Leo born. I try to be the man they deserve, but when the house is quiet, my eyes close. I'm back in the mountain's heart. I see pale limbs and strobing gunfire, hear endless chittering, the sound of a man falling apart in the dark, and Deacon's final prayer echoing into the void. A man who survives is not a man who is whole. We leave parts of ourselves where our brothers fall. Some of me remains in that cave, buried beneath turned rock and fire, in the shadow of the devil's anvil. At night, when the house is still, I feel the weight of the world's darkness, and a cold thought settles in my soul. They put their report in a file. They buried the truth under rock and lies. But what if that stone seals just one tomb among many? What if other dark places in this world still hold what waits in silence? I survived, but the war continues. It's fought in the quiet of night against enemies no one else can see, and I am a lone watchman on a wall no one knows exists.